Greetings here, it is I, Hilariously Scary, and today I'm going to be telling you all about the Overseers. So about a year ago, I made a video called A Brief Guide to My OCs. It was meant to be a joke because at the time, I was keeping really tight-lipped about all the elements of my story, and what little viewers I had were getting really confused. So that video was my attempt to explain things in a way that didn't really explain things at all. Almost immediately after, my channel began to grow, and now it's gotten a lot more attention, and people seeking for a serious video to understand the Overseers have been frustrated by that one. And it's so out of date to the point of being actually problematic in some cases. So I'm just making a new, better video. This video is going to be my attempt to explain everything. I'll be referencing other videos as I go that go into more details. So if you want to check out those videos, the links to them will be in the iCards or in the description if I run out of room. Okay, let's get started with the basics. What are the Overseers? The Overseers are one of several species in my story called Avas. Avas are powerful beings that cannot be killed by anything except for a more powerful Ava. The first generation of Avas being the most powerful and their children having half of their power, their grandchildren having a fourth of their power, and so on and so forth. Here's their full chart. Once they get to the 10th generation, the children are considered mid or midlings. In generations beyond that, their power level is such a tiny fraction that the children are just considered human. It should be noticed that the only sapient creatures among the multiverse in my own little corner of the universe are humans, just with different physical variations and power levels. Overseers in particular get their powers from being the physical embodiments of things, ideas, emotions, etc. Pretty much anything that has a noun that isn't a proper noun. Unlike other Avas, the Overseers were not created on their own planet. Instead, the 11 first-generation Overseers were born to regular humans in a little solar system far from Earth. One day, their sun went supernova, and the Overseers, who at that point just thought that they were strange immortals, were the only ones who survived. One of these immortals, Ambition, had a ship. He gathered them up and took them to the only other planet in their universe that had life, Earth. However, the humans on Earth at that point were barely able to keep a society going. Another one of these immortals, Control, who I'm actually drawing him and his wife right now. Apologize for not being up to par with my other pieces. I just really don't like drawing Control, which is not why I never do it. Anyways, Control made an offer to the group. They would take a guise to protect the human, to oversee them. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The others followed under Control's lead. They became the Overseers, protectors of humanity. They would watch over the humans, extending a helping hand when needed. From there, things were fine. The Overseers fit in well with the humans. There are a few hiccups along the way. They discovered the hard way what happens when an Overseer dies. You see, each Overseer has a crystal that contains their powers. It is connected to their very soul, which is why it's the same color as their eyes. Because, eyes in this universe are reflective of your soul color. Most Overseers wear their crystal as a necklace, but it's not uncommon to have, crystal bracelets, earrings, or other accessories. When an Overseer dies, their body burns to ash, leaving only the crystal. Then the ash reforms into a newborn baby with the same genetics as before, but with none of the memories. Often this new child will have a different personality or a different gender than their previous reincarnation, using quotes there. That's just the word they use. So for everyone asking about ambition versus obsession or opposite, chaos, and paradox, this is why they look so similar. They're incarnations of each other. Opposite was the first generation Overseer born to human parents, and then when Opposite was killed, she was reincarnated into Chaos, and then when Chaos was killed, he became Paradox. Oh, and about Geist. A Geist is an oath that is sworn to the untamed energy that exists outside the physical realm, whatever that means. The Geist can be anything from I will never say the word flabbergasted again to I will protect every snail in the world. Taking a Geist will heighten your abilities, but the amount that one's abilities are heightened depends on how difficult the Geist is to keep. For instance, if a human took the former Geist, they might be able to run a little faster or stay awake a little longer, but not much else would change. Whereas if they took the latter, they would soar to Ava status with perfect reflexes, ultimate stamina, and immortality. However, if you break your Geist, then your power would disappear completely and you would be worse off than before. Avas would become mids, mids would become humans, and humans would become, vegetables, basically. So great power comes at great risk. Things were fine with the Overseers until around when the timeline switched to AD. At that time, because of mysterious story reasons, it came to be that halflings were outlawed, along with all contact with humans. The exact reasons are spoilery. I may have mentioned it in the past, but I won't get into it here. The remaining pure-blooded Overseers, of which there are few beyond the first generation's Overseers and Control and Death's kids, the people that remained, they took the ship out to orbit to live there permanently. As more and more Overseers were born, eventually their children reached the power level when they could no longer be considered Overseers. Instead, they were called Maintainers. Maintainers live for a long time, but they're not immortal, and they don't maintain a specific element like the Overseers do. Instead, they get a weaker version of one of their ancestors' powers. They get them more like humans with a single superpower. So like, let's say if the Overseer of A and the Overseer of B had a kid, the Overseer C, and that kid married the Overseer of D, who is the child of Overseers E and F. And then let's say, like, for whatever reason, the child of C and D was a maintainer. Then that maintainer would have powers relating to either A, B, C, D, E, or F. And like maybe a mix of 2 or 3, but if so, it would be like really weak powers. This is something a lot of people get confused on, and I'm not really sure how to explain it. There's really a lot about maintainers that I might just give them their own video one day. But the Overseers extended the ship to accommodate for the new people. The ship was basically transformed into this giant floating country that looks something like this. Control and Des are the king and queen of everything. Under them is the council, which is all of the first generation Overseers. Each of them has a job, like Charity, the Overseer of Positive Emotions, runs the media. The Elementals are in charge of each of the 4 corners of the land, etc., etc. For all the details on the government, check out the Overseer's Basics on the Amino, which is linked below. But life for the Overseers isn't paradise. You see, Control is very, well, controlling. He controls everything, and there are a lot of rules. Any deviation will result in a strike. 1 strike and you're killed. If you get a strike in your next life, then you are killed again, but your crystal is locked up so you can never reform. For more information on life in the Overseers, check out the linked Amino post in the description. Important characters in the Overseer story are Intelligence, an Overseer who went rogue. Knowledge, the head of the court. Puzzles, her right-hand woman. Deduction, who, drinks an unhealthy amount of hot cocoa, and Obsession, who thinks death is funny. Now let's talk about the main story with the Overseers, the Troubleshoot. The basics of the Troubleshoot is explained in my Evolution of Desponia video. Desponia is the Overseer of Space, and she teams up with the Overseer of Dreams, Lucid, the Overseer of Chaos, Paradox, and the Overseer of Adventure, who's just called Adventure. I really want to make a TV show about their antics as they get into trouble around the multiverse. Adventure and Paradox, who are actually dating in the series, are both on 1 strike, so they really can't afford to get caught, but Des isn't worried. Again, you can see more of their dynamic in my Evolution of Desponia video. Their story comes to an abrupt end when Des bites off a little bit more than she can chew and ends up trapped in a Battle Royale universe. This is where Philip's story begins. You can see a full breakdown of the world and the Born for this video. Basically, Philip and his sister Thea were born in this place where they had to kill to survive, Philip being Desponia's biological son and Thea having been adopted. Philip's father was a human with Ava-level powers to create clouds of destruction. Philip inherited both of his parents' powers, being able to create both destruction clouds and portals. His sister Thea had her mother's powers to manipulate invisible beads that can combine to create shields, weapons, tools, etc. Philip ends up winning the game, but if you know anything about Battle Royales, you know that's kind of a hollow victory. Eventually, because of mysterious story reasons, Philip changes his name to Ulysses and gets sent to the ARI. I talk about the ARI more in my Meet My OC Jaymi video. Basically, it's a prison, but with easily episodic missions to go on. There he's teamed up with a fellow inmate, Jaymi, an Overseer with fire powers, and an admin, Ian, who's also an Overseer but far too tired to get into his backstory. It's secretly just intelligence. This is the story that I'm publishing monthly updates to over on my Patreon, but the first one is free to read if anybody wants to. There's a bunch of other characters, like Desponia and Lucid's adopted kids, Stephanie, the Overseer of Portals, Octavius, the reincarnated Overseer of Science, and Raylu, the reincarnated Overseer of Energy. If you go into the past, there's even more characters like Infinity and Dreamer, who I wrote a novella about, or Ambition and Method, who I'm currently writing a novella about. This is honestly just the basics. If you want to learn more, check out the playlist Videos That Explain the Canon. You can also leave questions on the wall of my Amino page thing. Anyways, I hope this cleared up some of your questions and hopefully won't generate even more. I'm sorry that this is so complicated, but thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!